Marc Kahn is a chartered business coach with the Worldwide Association of Business Coaches, a clinical psychologist, as well as a management and organization development consultant. He also manages Investec's enterprise development initiatives. Now, Marc, welcome to studio.
Thank you.
Marc, when a business recruits, when they're trying to find that perfect employee, what are the most common mistakes that they make right at the beginning?
Look, I think there are a lot of myths about recruitment, and in particular interviewing. How do you know if this is the right person, both at a competency level but also at a fit level? And perhaps it's worth going through some of those myths. I think one of those myths is that there's some tricks that you can do when you interview to find out the real truth about the person. You can watch their eyes or listen to their tone or see if they fold their arms or leave their arms open, and this will tell you whether they're lying or not. And to tell you the truth, that's more appropriate for the CIA interrogation techniques. It's not appropriate in a business context. In most cases, even if you were able to determine something, you wouldn't really know what it was about, and you'd spend all your time trying to locate that and miss the person in front of you, which is the real thing. So that's the first thing. No tricks, no fancy techniques on how to interview. Interviewing is a conversation. Interviewing is a dialogue. Interviewing is an entry into a relationship. So that's one of the big mistakes that companies make, is that they think that it's all about some trick in interviewing, when really it's just about sitting down like we are here, having a cup of coffee and having a discussion about the role that is in play and the degree to which this person with their background and their personal story can take up that role and deliver value. And you talk about it, and you allow your own natural antenna to tune in. So that's probably the biggest myth out there that hopefully we can just
But now, Marc, a lot of people are very easy on the tongue. They can really convince you that they are the best person for this role. How do you differentiate between the authentic people and those that aren't?
Okay, so this is the most important question. That's actually why people are into tricks in interviewing, to find out if they're being tricked, because obviously the person's going to put forward their best foot, and one would expect so. But the way that you do that is you've got several sort of points of view on an individual. Call them lenses. And you have multiple lenses. One of those lenses would be their background, where they worked before, reference checks, their qualifications, and you can ask them about it. You can look into their CV, and you can also phone references, and you get a story about their history. And I would recommend not only phoning their references, but if they worked in another company, find out who you know in that other company, give them a call and say, what was this person like, if you've got relationships. So that gives you one lens, and it's quite hard to fib about that. The other lens is the way that they connect with you and allow yourself to be impacted by that individual. And then the third lens is actually their own self-report. Ask them about the role. That's the other great mistake that companies make, is that they spend a lot of time asking, about the kind of intricacies of the person's mind or something, without actually saying, well, look, this is what the job is. Tell me about how you're going to take up this job. And then the third thing is, one interview is not enough. You need different people to interview the person at different times, and then those people need to cross-reference their experience of the person, and that'll also give you a degree of construct validity. And if you put that all together, you get a very valid sense of that individual. And notice I haven't mentioned psychometric testing, because I'm not a fan of that. And we can discuss that as well. That's one of the things to
Marc,
talk
I want to
about.
come in here and talk about your view around the interviewer preparing for an interview and not the interviewee. I mean, the interviewer will obviously prepare, but you're a strong advocate of the interviewer preparing. Just unpack that a bit.
Okay, that's the most important question that you could ask in this thing, because the degree to which people prepare themselves to interview a person will be directly proportional to the accuracy with which they can make a call about that person's ability and fit. And why is that? When a person interviews, they're not interviewing for a vacuum. They're interviewing for a role. That was a very particular role. Einstein said, ask a fish to climb a mountain, he looks a fool. Put him in the water, you'll call him a genius. So if you don't understand when you're interviewing the fish, whether it's a mountain they're climbing or whether they're swimming in the water, what's the point? So the biggest preparation piece for an interviewer is to understand the role. Not just what it takes to perform in the role, but who else is in that team, what the market is like, who has performed well in that role before, what were they like, who has failed in that role before, what were they like, and really understand that. And when I now understand this and I come and I interview you, I then will say to you, give me an idea of how you're going to take this role up, and I'll have reference points in my mind to test that, and I can actually ask you about that. And that conversation is very, very efficient and very powerful.
Mark, just to talk about the length of the interview, because if you're prepared, like I interview a lot of people, and sometimes in the first 5 minutes, I actually don't know what to do now, because I feel rude.
Because you know there's no way.
There's absolutely no way. And in other instances, I feel like there's something that I want to find out more. Is there an ideal length of minimum length you should spend, even if you felt in the first 5 minutes that this person is a no-go, but give them a second chance or third chance to come back?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. Usually within the first 5 or 10 minutes, if you get a strong no response, it's unlikely that it'll change along the way, although it's possible. So it's worth throwing an extra 5 or 10 minutes on that, just to make sure it's not one of those rare occasions where your gut was wrong. And I call it a rare occasion because most of the time the gut will be right. And absolutely, you need to listen. I call it the antenna. That's what worries me about psychometric testing, for example, for interviews, aside from the labor law problems with it, because it's not really allowed that you can test a person's personality for a job in labor practice. It's not actually so kosher, but it kills off the human interviewer's ability to tune in and see if this person will fit, because they subjugate themselves to the objective truth of a test's outcome. So your gut says in 10 minutes this person won't fit, but the test says they're a great personality. What are you going to do? And that's one of the problems with it.
I want to talk about, you spoke earlier about the multiple lenses, that you have, and that requires many people in your organization to interview that individual. So it would be the team that the person would be working in, the superior, who else? And then what is the real practical implication of that from a resource point of view? You spend so much time interviewing, but surely that's got a downside.
Yes. The downside of having a multiple interview process is the time efficiency. You do a test in one interview, you can do that in a morning and you can make your call. So absolutely negative, takes time, uses resource, and sometimes can drag the interview process on, that the candidate is a little bit fatigued from it and might go somewhere else. Yes, that's a downside. But consider this, the degree to which a company spends its time originating a deal, originating a new client. Think about the proportional amount of time they spend originating a new member of staff, and which gets you a better return on investment. One new client or one new deal, or a really excellent new person on your team. And you'll see that it's the individual that's going to give you the best return. But you'll find an inverse proportion of time spent on selecting that person. And that's a mistake in business, a big mistake. It's worth spending the time.
Right.
Yeah. Mark, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. It's really been valuable.
Thanks for having me.
It's now time for the MTN Business Office Etiquette Tip of the Week.
Gossiping at any time generally is not accepted. If you can't say something to somebody's face, you shouldn't actually say it behind their back. And in fact, what you should do, when you're in the presence of gossip or somebody starts gossiping, you should have the character to say to the person, I'm terribly sorry, I'm busy, and politely excuse yourself. Or if you're forthright and one of those people, look at the person and just say to them, this is just not for me, and that person's not here to defend themselves. Gossip causes culture in company. Cultures are formed by what is said around the water cooler and in the kitchen. So make sure what you say, because no matter what you say, it's going to be blown up as well. And it's probably going to get to the person and be a totally different story. So rather don't.
If you'd like to watch parts of this show again, log on to www.businessdaytv.co.za, click on shows and then scroll down to the Big Small Business Show. You can look for specific interviews by using search words. We're also inviting you to have a look at the entry form to apply for a Raise Corp bursary to the value of 260,000 rands. Now, Alan, what's your view of today's show?
Yeah, also, once again, I love today's show. I particularly liked Marc Kahn's insert. I learned quite a bit. I think it's quite interesting how, or his point of view around rather not look for how the eyes are moving, etc.
Yes,
Not
the tricks.
The tricks, as he put it, yeah, and not the test or assessments, but rather using the people.
Yes.
But what really stood out for me was actually Natasha's interview, where she said something which once again I think is very mature for a business that size, and that she spoke about the fact that she listens to her customer. Now, why I think this is important right now is because I feel like the DGM, you know what the DGM is, the doom and gloom merchant. I think South Africa is in for a couple of hard years ahead. I think there's some tough times ahead. You see all the to-let signs. I see the tills at the shopping centres are getting, the queues are getting shorter.
Yeah.
And I think we're in for some tough times. And in tough times, you need to get back to basics. You need to be thinking about the basics. And one of the basics of business is that we are here to serve the client. And what she said in that interview was that she listens to what the client wants and then creatively delivers on that. She listens to what the client wants and creatively delivers on that. So what does listening to the client mean? And as simple as that might seem, I see a lot of entrepreneurs on a weekly basis, and they don't actually know how to ask what the client wants. So here's 3 simple questions.
Okay.
Number 1, what do you need? Okay. Simply asking the client, what do you need? Number 2, how can I serve you better? Like, in a sincere fashion, how could I serve you better as your supplier of goods or services? And number 3 is, what can I improve on? Give me a critique about where I can improve. And just by asking those 3 questions, you'll be amazed at the kind of information you will get. Not only will it help you in terms of serving that client, but it'll help you in terms of serving all your clients. And it'll create a better bond between you and your clients. So ask your client what you can do better for them and what they need, and you'll be amazed. Back to basics.
Simply going back to basics, and that will get you winning. If you'd like to bring businesses to our attention so that they can be featured on the show, please send us an email to bigsmall@bdtv.co.za or tweet us at bsbs_bdtv. It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me too. And remember, if you think it, write it down and make it a creative reality. You know?
It's not
It's
you,
okay.
it's me.
It's okay.
That's what he's saying.
Oh.
You know when people break up with you and they say it's not you, it's me, it's you.
Now, the panel's guest today is a husband and wife team, Sibongile and Leslie Mtunjwa. Okay. I said it. I think I got it wrong because I saw their face. They were okay. Mtunjwa, Leslie. Siabong. Where are you going? No, auto cue. I don't want to scream auto cue again. Okay. All right, let's go. No, I can't. Okay, I'm in my camera. Okay.
The Big Small Business Show was proudly brought to you by MTN Business. Your success is our passion. And the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Develop, influence, lead.